Here we go.
I think that God's body is different from our body because God's body is made of something incredibly bright, something a little bit like fire, but much, much brighter and much more powerful. They don't have a word for it in Hebrew. So when they want to talk about it, they'll usually say it was like a consuming fire.
So with a few minutes that we have left, just give us a little bit to think about here with the Christian faith where, you know, an embodied God is sort of an important point. It's Jesus, right? So maybe just if you can riff just very briefly on maybe the continuity of these ideas in parts of the Hebrew Scriptures and then the Christian story as well.
Sure. So you've got this debate going on in what Jews call the Bible or the Tanakh, what Christians call the Old Testament. I think that by and large, within the Tanakh, within the Old Testament, the Deuteronomic or priestly point of view wins. The JE position that seems to be a little bit more of, you know, believing that God can be fluid and multiple, becomes the minority position, so much so that it's not even all that noticeable. You have to work hard to notice that it's there. But it never fully disappears. I think it keeps on showing up in the post-biblical period. It shows up, for example, in Jewish mysticism. I think it also shows up in Christianity. And let me just give two examples of that in Christianity. First of all, the idea that, which is explicit, let's say, in the Gospels, in the opening verses of John, the idea that that Jesus is not just a human being, but that Jesus is also God. The idea that God sends the Word, but the Word actually is God. This idea really is similar to the idea that we've got a small-scale manifestation of God on the planet Earth, which is really similar to what Jacob is doing when he brings God into that piece of stone. So the idea of Jesus as being God or part of God in the New Testament, that's really just another example of what I would call this fluidity thinking that appears in the Jewish Bible, in the Old Testament. It's a minority position there, but it never disappears. It reappears in early Christianity. I would also suggest that the doctrine of the Trinity is also an example of this fluidity position, this idea that you can have multiplicity within a unity. If God can be, let's say back in Genesis, present in one or maybe three men who appear to Abraham, and simultaneously God is still up in heaven, then God is at once multiple and unified. Now, once you've got the idea that the unity that is God can manifest itself in multiple places and in multiple ways at the same time, you know, you could have 10 such manifestations, you could have 3 such manifestations. In classical Jewish mysticism, you actually have 10 manifestations that are known as the Sfirot. In classical Christianity, you have 3 manifestations that are the 3 persons of the Trinity. I think a lot of people have often thought that, especially among Jews, that a lot of Jews believe that the idea of the Trinity, it's not really monotheistic. That somebody has taken some Greek idea, which is a pagan idea, and superimposed it on the monotheistic idea from ancient Israel, and that's what produces the Trinity. Something that was really, really surprising for me when I wrote my book, The Bodies of God, when I was researching this book, is I came to realize that Jewish criticism of the Trinity is not really actually such a legitimate criticism. That is to say, the idea of the Trinity is actually very much at home in the religion of the Hebrew Bible. The idea of the Trinity is simply another later idea of multiplicity within unity. Theologically, what I'm arguing is that theologically, from the point of view of Judaism, there's nothing really the matter with the doctrine of the Trinity. The theological model of the Trinity is an acceptable model.